and welcome to our Independence Day special. I'm Sonia, Shenoy, and here's wishing all our viewers a very happy Independence Day. As India celebrates its 68th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered his maiden I-Day speech at the Red Fort today. In an extempore speech, Modi highlighted various priority issues that need to be concerned, ranging from the upliftment of the poor, women's security, sanitation, etc. The Prime Minister also spoke about financial inclusion and a push for manufacturing. So here are some of the key takeaways that we have put together from this speech from an economic point of view. First, the Planning Commission is on its way out. The Prime Minister has announced that a new institute, which is the National Development Reforms Commission, will replace the Plan panel very soon. Second, as part of his financial inclusion plan, Prime Minister Modi has announced bank accounts for all under the Jan Dhan Yojana, also promised life insurance of 1 lakh rupees to the poor. And third, Modi also issued an invitation to world businessmen with his Come Make in India slogan. He said he wants India's manufacturing to reach a scale where India just exports and sees zero imports. So, what should one make of the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech? Did it meet people's expectations? Did he succeed in making his financial inclusion plan clear? Let's ask some of our experts. So joining me on the panel today, we have Siddharth Birla, the President of FICCI, Krishna Kumar, the Managing Director of SBI, Dr. Subir Gokarn, Director of Research at Brookings India, and Taimur Baig, India Economist at Deutsche Bank. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to all of you and a happy Independence Day to each one of you. I'm going to start off by getting some initial comments from everyone. Mr. Birla, I want to start off with you. You know, there was a sense of deja vu that you got with this speech. I mean, it seemed great on vision, but it lacked a concrete roadmap, as many experts have put it. Do you think it was a bit unrealistic in the first place to expect any concrete roadmap this time around, or were you disappointed with this speech?
No, I thought this was one of the most amazing speeches I've heard in my career since I started working. Let's analyze the audience. He was speaking to the country, he was speaking through television channel, he was speaking to children, he was speaking to citizens. So to expect an economic roadmap that would satisfy either Dr. Gokarn or Mr. Kumar or myself would be completely out of place. And I think you have to understand the spirit of the government as it comes behind this speech. That if you're saying something, you have some kind of action plan to put it in place. You know, he was talking, okay, for example, when you said make in India. Now, make in India is not an invitation only to the globe to come and make in India. It's an invitation to anyone who wants to make in India, including he wants the youngsters to go around and see that even in my small-scale factory, can I make something that's being imported? He set a standard of zero defect. He said when we export, when we make, can we make it a zero defect? That is what will make us a manufacturing nation, nothing otherwise. Then you have the infrastructure and other issues, but first is the intent. So I think the vision was there, and it's not just the vision. I think it was completely unfair to expect a roadmap, and it is also unreal that he doesn't have a roadmap in his mind as to how he's going to take this forward.
All right, point taken. It was unfair to perhaps expect a roadmap in this speech itself. And to be fair, it's true, you know, I don't remember the last time anyone sat up and actually watched the Prime Minister's Independence Day speech so closely, but this time that has taken place. So let me just put that question to Dr. Gokarn. Dr. Gokarn, come in on the speech, what your takeaway was and what were the key highlights this time around from an economic point of view?
Well, I think as you mentioned in your lead-in, the substantial, a large number of very concrete economic objectives, priorities that the speech laid out. I listened to all of it, and you know, I picked up 4 or 5 points that you also emphasized: financial inclusion, sanitation, manufacturing, tourism. And a couple of others that I think, you know, you come up with. Of course, the Planning Commission, which I think is unfortunately getting more attention than it deserves. But everybody's leading off with the scrapping the Planning Commission message, which I think is, to me, is the least important one of the lot. I think the sanitation, the manufacturing, the tourism, and the financial inclusion, the 4 key, the rural development, yes, the village bottom-up rural development. These are the 5 key takeaways for me. Each of them reflects some sort of a mission, some sort of a coordinated effort to achieve development objectives. Obviously, the speech does not lay out the mechanics of how these are going to be achieved, but I think the mechanics of many of them, particularly the manufacturing objective, are well known. We know what we need to do to revive the manufacturing sector in terms of competitiveness. Question is, how do we move from stating it as an objective to actually accomplishing all of these things? A very important point that was made in the beginning of the speech was the governance issue, which is his very, very strong, I'd say, critique of the way government functions in silos, power centers, people in conflict, in confrontation, and how it's important to change that. A concrete example of addressing this was a decision taken a few weeks ago on reducing or putting a time limit of 15 days on inter-ministerial consultations. Now, I don't know how that's worked out in practice, but I think these are ways in which you have to move from the sort of very siloed ministry-level approach to problems to a much more integrated mission approach to these very complex problems. And if these objectives are then followed through with kind of these managerial and administrative initiatives, I think you do have the beginnings of movement. Given these 5 key priorities, the question is, what next in terms of how the various ministries that are involved are brought together, coordinated, synchronized in their approach. Now, let me just talk about the Planning Commission, which, as you've just said, is going to be restructured into something called the National Development and Reform Commission. It doesn't matter so much as what it's called. I think the articulation of its mission is of critical importance. How is it being repositioned? And to me, the main transition from the current framework to what we should have is a much more forward-looking, a much more futuristic kind of a role. One of the problems the economy has had, in my perception, over the last 20 years is the failure to anticipate bottlenecks as they emerge. And so our response to slowdowns or to constraints is very reactive. It always starts after the problem has been reached. And what this new entity and its mission, I think, needs to do is to be able to anticipate problems and be able to take proactive policy steps to make sure that you don't keep hitting these troughs. And I think that's how the mission needs to be laid out. If that is accomplished, then I think the transition is a useful one, a significant one, but it all lies in how the mission for this new entity is framed.
Okay, I'm going to actually talk about all those points one by one, but before that, let's touch upon the financial inclusion plan, and let's tell our viewers what Prime Minister Modi had to say on this new financial inclusion plan called the Jan Dhan Yojana, which will provide 1 lakh insurance to the poor and bank accounts for all. Listen in.
प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना, इस प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना के माध्यम से हम देश के गरीब से गरीब लोगों को बैंक अकाउंट की सुविधा से जोड़ना चाहते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना के तहत जो अकाउंट खोलेगा उसको डेबिट कार्ड दिया जाएगा और डेबिट कार्ड के साथ हर गरीब परिवार को 1 लाख रुपया का बीमा सुनिश्चित कर दिया जाएगा।
All right, so the question we're asking, how feasible is this and what will be the impact on the banking system? Joining me here is A. Krishna Kumar of SBI. Mr. Kumar, thank you for joining me. And, we were speaking in the break about how only less than 60% of households currently use bank accounts. So if and when this scheme actually comes full force into the economy, how will it actually impact one, credit growth and the banking system as a whole?
Well, yes, that's a very good question. In fact, I cannot say that we have not been doing financial inclusion at all. Financial inclusion as a concept started maybe 6-7 years back, and since then the banking system as a whole has been trying its level best to include as many people as they can, at least in terms of opening simple savings bank accounts. Now, with this push which has been given by the Prime Minister, I think the focus will shift. I mean, the radar of the banking sector will now focus entirely on the opening of bank accounts, which is very, very critical. In fact, about 2-3 years ago, I was told when I had first become managing director of the State Bank of India, that we had at least 60% of the population in rural areas who do not have a banking account. Perhaps over the last couple of years, that 60% has come down to maybe 50 or 45% of the banking system in the rural semi-urban areas not having a bank account. But still, that shows the task is really huge and really humongous, and it needs all the resources of the banking system need to be put in to make this dream come true. And I personally believe that this is something which is really, really very, very important and necessary. Now, you spoke about credit growth. People generally think that those in the rural segments would hardly borrow any money, but it's not to be seen in that way. You see, right now, the amount of credit or loans which are given in the rural sector, perhaps quite a bit of it is given by the unorganized financial sector, meaning thereby money lenders. Now, if the money lender can be replaced with the banking system, you can just imagine, even if somebody takes a 10,000 rupee loan, and there are about 500 million people taking a 10,000 rupee loan, the growth in the credit portfolio of all the banks will really be huge.
I want to put this question on to Taimur Baig, India economist at Deutsche Bank. Taimur, come in on the financial inclusion plan, what your assessment is, and more importantly, is there any stress that this would put on the banking system?
Okay, I'm going to step back because there is this, overflowing, feel-good factor in your panel right now, and everybody is very generous and very, very, full of optimism.
Yes, please, bring on the criticism.
A little more cynical. Look, in terms of vision, it's all good. I think the reason we're even having a panel talking about the Prime Minister's speech on 15th of August is the fact that there was very heightened expectation, and the speech did not meet those expectations. We can all spin and say that, oh, it was unfair to have such high expectations because this is a speech to the regular folks. But the fact of the matter is it was plugged in as a, wait till you hear the 15th of August speech, and we didn't really get much out of that. Financial inclusion, as our colleague just said, has been talked about and in the pipeline for many, many years. There's nothing new there. Look, the point of, financial inclusion through the banking system is at risk of being overtaken by modernization and technology. If you look at many other developing countries in the world, e-banking is taking place through the mobile phone. You don't need to have a bank account anymore. People are settling transactions through the cell phone. They're carrying out markets. You just look at neighboring Bangladesh, where Cell Bazaar has revolutionized the way rural folks do transactions, rural folks do payments. So, the idea of financial inclusion sounds all very good, but it's slightly antiquated in my view, and to the extent that formalization of financial payments will bring people under the tax net, that can be done through e-payments. It doesn't have to be done through a bank account. Now, your point about, would this put some sort of stress on the banking system? Of course. Think about the cost of monitoring very poor borrowers and the provisions you would have to make for the credit risk and the lack of collateral. There's a reason why there's microfinancing around the world, because there is a systematic failure of usual banking as far as, very poor, uncollateralized borrowers are concerned. Financial inclusion is not going to change that. Technology may, and it's happening in many other ways. It doesn't have to be done through a formal banking system.
All right, stay tuned. We will continue decoding the Prime Minister's speech with our guests on the other side. But before we do that, let's hear out a special edition of the National Anthem by the students of the Akanksha Foundation.
Hello everyone. We know, you know how to sing our national anthem. But do you know its meaning? No, na? We'll teach you. Come. Jana gana mana adhinayak jaya hai Bharat bhagya vidhata. Punjab taught you something that you didn't know. But there are hundreds and thousands of things that we don't know. Can you come and teach us?
Come, be a teacher. Log on to www.akanksha.org.